Hello Ukulele Bandits, so here we are. This is I'm a Believer, great song by the Monkees, and we're doing it in the original key. And a little tip really to start off with, if you can, try and keep the songs in the original keys. This makes it easier for other musicians that might not necessarily know your version that's in the ukulele key but are familiar to the original song, and it also means that people can practice with that original song and it's more authentic, obviously. So where you can, try and keep songs in the original key, and this one's ideal. And so what we're looking at is the intro. There's a really cool little guitar riff which is at the end of the choruses and in the intro, and I think which make the song, it's that little hook that really makes the song stand out. And then the strumming pattern, the rhythm pattern, and at the end to top it off we've got a nice solo, which is a bit of a ode to Wipeout, which is why I put Wipeout next to it, because if you learn this solo pretty much you'll be able to play the Wipeout solo. So let's look at the intro to start with. So we've got that chord G7, and it's highlighted G7 because it's the same notes as G7 but it's played a lot higher up and arranged differently. So this G7 here will not work, it won't sound very good, because on the Hammond organ, on the organ they used on the record, it's arranged so the pitches are these. It's quite high up, but when you combine it we've got the first note which is actually an open G string, and then you're plucking or strumming, doesn't really matter what you do on that one, the 8 on the first string, so the one nearest the floor, let's call that the A string, then you're going to play 10 on the E string, 11 on the C string, and you can hear that twice. So you play that open G, 8, 10, 11. Yeah, it's a bit odd, it takes a little bit of practice getting used to that shape because it's a bit different. The way you could think about it, if you want to make your life a little bit simpler, rather than thinking, oh this is a crazy new shape, it's way up there, how the hell am I going to get this involved, is actually very, very similar to an E minor. If you take your E minor, which is basically 2, 3 and 4, and you slide that all the way up to the 8th fret, and just extend the 2nd and 3rd finger up 1 more fret. So another little handy tip is that when you play the E minor, the frets are wider up here than they are down here. Obviously it depends on your ukulele how wide they are and how narrow, but generally the frets are going to be wider up here and narrower down there as the scale gets shorter. So 2, 3, 4, I can put my finger in there. Now when I move that up without stopping and put it on the 2, you can see that I'm actually almost over the exact frets that I need, because the frets have got so much smaller. Where the distance between those fingers were 2, 3, 4, I'm more or less on 8, 10 and 11, because I'm actually on the fret, so I only have to shift it the tiny fraction. So think of it as an E minor on the 8th fret to start with, and just shift those two, the 2nd and 3rd finger along. So you can see there I'll just hold it up like that so you can see it a bit clearer. There's the 8, there's the 10, there's 11. If I take up to E minor at the back, so we've got 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to lift it all the way up to 8. You can see all I've got to do is literally a very, very small amount to get that in there. So I've got 8, 10, 11. I'm trying to see it on this camera there. There's 8, 10, 11. Okay, so E minor up to the 8th fret and move it along 1. Now you've got a dot there. The 3rd dot on most ukuleles is the 7th fret. So that's your reference point. These are actually handy things to know regardless of whether you're doing this riff or not. So 3, 5 and 7, use those as references when you get to do chord shapes, especially if we take a G chord, because the 2nd chord in that intro sequence is actually a C, and if you take that G chord and move it all the way to the 7th fret, it's actually a C chord. Now that's already a really valuable thing to know, because alright, that first chord is a bit of a bummer, it's a bit harder to finger, but if you wanted to play along with a ukulele group, and C is a chord that's used a hell of a lot, as you know, C, F and G are the main progressions that we hear in a lot of the songs. If you wanted to make it interesting, you could play C up here. So I'm playing C here instead of, and the pitches are just higher. It's the equivalent to the keyboard player playing a C just further up the keyboard where the pitches are higher. So all sorts of things like this where you wouldn't necessarily think about doing that. You wouldn't think of playing a C there. If you're in a whole bunch of people and someone's playing, a lot of people are playing the low C, there's like 10 people playing that low C, you can play something and it'll add to the sound. It gives you a nicer wall of sound. It get spreading out all the frequencies in the mix, if you like, in the song, enables it to sound more colourful and interesting. So anyways, there's a big lot of tips there really of where this stuff can be quite useful. So going back over that again, we've got our 8, 10, 11. Now I'm looking down at the dot just so I know where I am, and after a while playing it, it doesn't take much looking to get used to where it is. You can more or less feel it. I'm actually, when I'm on the 8, my hand's touching the body of the instrument there, so if I do that and move to the body of the instruments, I'm actually on the right frets there, and that's another helpful guide for me if I want to play it quickly. So I can actually feel the heel as I get there, and I've only got a little visual check really. So anyway, so we've got the 8, 10, 11, which you play the open on the G, then you're going to play these two, this G7, this version, and then 7, 8, 7, which is, it's just a G shape moved up. And if I was to chromatically move, you might not get this bit, but we talked about this theoretically before, where we talked about the musical alphabet, which goes from A to G, and there's sharps in between every one apart from E and F. So A, B, then it goes to a C, C sharp, D. So it's A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G. That's your musical alphabet. Is that important? Or yeah, it is kind of. If you're a musician or if you're playing any instrument, to know the musical alphabet is pretty damn useful. So A to G with sharps after every note apart from E and F. So why I'm saying this is because if you were to take that G chord and go up the musical alphabet, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, I'm now moving that G chord into lots of different positions to produce new chords. So I've got the G chord, if I move it up 2, I've got an A chord. If I was to move it up, so so yeah, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, and then move it up one more, which is where we want to be, 7, 8, 7, a C. So I'm doing a bit of Pinball Wizard there, and all I did was move up, and that's how they play the song on the guitar, so I know it quite well. It's basically that G shape, and they play it with a little finger in front, and then he moves it back, and it's chromatically moving that G chord. So that's there's nothing to do with this song, obviously, but it's an example of that chord shape, the G chord shape, being moved up and down to make a chord progression instead of moving all your fingers in different shapes like that. So hopefully you'll get a lot more than just learning the intro to I'm a Believer by the Monkees. You'll be thinking that's, you spent hours and hours just to learn that intro. Actually, you're learning a lot more. You're learning really valuable shapes or methods of playing the chord shapes that are in this part. So without further ado, that's the intro part, which I think is pretty useful. You've got your 8, 10, 11, and it goes back to a G, which is a normal G chord. So we've got 8, 10, 11, and as it hits that last G chord, right on that chord, dan, 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 da, 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 we get this really cool guitar riff. And it's got some hammer-ons in there. Well, I talked about this before, but if you're new to hammer-ons, the idea of a hammer-on is where we play a note, and regardless of whether you learn to play this well, learning to hammer on, like the intro, learning those chord shapes, learning to hammer on builds strength and more agility in your fingers. So even if you have a go at it and you start to be able to get the hammer on, that's a really good thing to learn and to have a go at doing. And don't worry if you can't get it up to speed with the riff just yet. It's one of those things that take a little bit of time if you're not used to playing singular notes so much. So here's the riff. We go open 2 on the, so I'm on the C string there. I was going to call it third string, we'll call it the C string, make it easier. So C string there, and I'm playing it open, and what I'm doing with my finger is I'm slamming it into the fretboard. I'm putting a lot of force, and not really hard so it hurts, but I'm putting a lot of direct force going straight onto the note, so I'm not kind of going softly without much force. If I put a bit more force on, so tip of the finger as much as you can, better than the side of the finger, because it's a little bit tougher, the tip of the finger, and the idea is to go directly straight down onto that note from above. That's why it's like a hammer. If you imagine a hammer coming down, that's very similar. And then you're going to play 1, or the first fret, on the E string. So you hammer on O2, and then I'm playing 1 on the one below, so 1 on the E string. So C string, hammer on, and you just repeat that. Now, because we've got an uneven number or an uneven grouping of notes, in other words there's 3 in that little pattern, da da da, we're going to play that twice and then just play the first 2 notes, O2, to give our even 8 notes per bar. So we want these in 4 or 8 generally. When we're playing patterns, we want to keep it within the bar. So if we call that that's 8 notes, isn't it? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and that's our bar. So we're going to go O, 2, 1, then repeat, and then we start again on the next pattern, and it's just an open on the very last one because it gives you 1 beat to get into the chord for get into the chords for the song. So we're going to go. Okay, so let's do that one more time. So we're going to go open 2, and do it with the thumb, just get a little bit more depth in the note. And all you do is you put it together so there's no gaps, no breaks, no rests. So yes, it is quick. It does take a little bit of practice, but just doing it very slowly, getting the method right, it will definitely add something to your playing, because you're adding a new skill and a bit of strength in your fingers as well. And the other thing is, we can use these on chords. It's not just single lines or riffs or licks. So if you're playing a chord, and I can hammer on with another finger. So if I'm playing a chord progression, you can hear these things all the time. You hear really good ukulele players play. So I'm just playing a chord and then hammering on my finger. I'm basically pressing down on the note using the force of my finger. So we're not doing that today, but obviously this little lick is giving you examples of, or a technique that you can use in other songs or in chord progressions and all sorts. So definitely learn that skill of reproducing the sound with the finger on its own without anything happening with the right hand, and that's the important thing about hammer on. Okay, so that's the guitar riff. We're going to look at the strumming. The strumming here is very straight thing, down strums. We've got a simple strumming pattern. So if you're just reading the chart and you're not doing any of the fiddly bits, you just do a nice simple strumming pattern. But at least if you want to take it up a little bit of a level, add some dynamics. And we have here, let's have a look. We have these arrows. I don't know if you can see the arrows on the screen there, but you've got where it says rhythm downstrokes, you've got a sideways arrow there on the second chord strum. Now this is just a G chord. This is all it is just a G chord. So 2, 3, 2 is a G chord. So if it looks complicated because you've got the numbers, you've got to remember that numbers are the frets. So the 0, this is your open G string, this is the 2 on the C string, 3 on the E, and the 2 is on the A string, and that gives you actually a G chord. So all you need to know is it's a G chord, which is the first chord in the song. And you do this throughout, basically, this rhythm. So a nice simple version of the rhythm will be playing the 4 G's but putting an accent on the second strum. That makes it sound a little bit more dancey, a little bit more, stands out a little bit more. And this is our accent, so this is every second strum. So you just take a G chord and strum heavier on every second strum of a down strum. So that's how it should sound with the chords G and D. So we've just got a G chord, playing 4 strums, and trying to make it heavier on that second one. Okay, and then if you listen to the track, you'll hear it jump out every now and again. Jump, it jumps right out at you, that strumming progression. Okay, so the next one we've got is a slightly more advanced. We just put an upstroke behind every second strum, basically. So you're going to go down, down, up. So behind every accent, that little arrow that goes side to side. Notice I'm still putting a heavy one on every second down strum. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that is the 2 rhythm parts. I would say you only really need to do that throughout the whole song with the chords, is try and keep the flow of it, so that you hear those accent notes on the 2 and 4. Whether you put the upstroke in or whether you don't put the upstroke in, it's just a little bit of an extra flavour. Okay, so that is the rhythm part. Okay, so now we're going to look at the solo part, and the solo part is very, very similar to Wipeout, which is why I put Wipeout. If you learn this, you pretty much will be able to play Wipeout. And if you're learning this and you're not quite sure of how to read the music and what all these symbols mean, because that is explained in a different video where I talk about all the symbols, so I'm not going to do it in every video, but if you're not quite sure and comfortable with reading the note values, for example, underneath, there's a very, very simple method. Is actually listen to the song, listen to the solo, and hum it. So if you listen to the solo and then hum it back to yourself enough times, the rhythm of all those notes will be in there, and then when you start picking it out, you'll start to be familiar and hear, oh, I can hear it sounds like what I was humming, and all you've got to do is match what you're playing to your humming. So this is a very good skill to have if you're not comfortable reading music and you're looking at the sheets and you're thinking, oh, this is a lot of complexity, and you want to try and play this solo. Is really listen to that solo enough times so it sticks in your head, then work the numbers out. That's all you need to do, is work out the numbers, which are 3, 3, 3 on the second string, which is the E string, and then 1, which is so that's an F note on the E string as well. So if I play that first bit, so what I've just played there with 3, 3, so I'm playing the 3rd fret twice, and then there's a little gap, and it's 3, 1 on. So this is all on the E string. So on the E string, I'm playing the 3rd fret twice, and then I go to the 2nd fret, use my 2nd finger. Okay, so what I played there was on the 2nd bar, so I'm on where the D is, basically underneath that D. I'm playing 2, 2 on the 3rd string, or the C string, and then I'm playing 2 on the 3rd string, 1 and 2 on the E string. If I put those 2 bits together, I've got the first part where it says G chord, and then the second part. Okay, play it a bit quicker. So I just played the first 2 bars. I played the G, the D, and this is the bit that sounds just like Wipeout. It's really cool. It's on the G chord, so I'm on bars 10. If you look at the page, it's the last 2 right at the bottom, and where the G chord is, it goes 3, 3, 3, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2. So you can see the 3, 3, 3, 1 is on the E string, and the 2, 2 is on the C string, and then 1, 2 back on the E string, and it's all the same rhythm all the way through. So you go, so you're going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and giving us our bar. So you literally just play the thing, that bar twice. You play that riff twice. So where it says G, and then you got another bar of it G, it goes 3, 3, 3, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2. You're just literally repeating the same riff. So 3, 3, 3, 1 on the E string, 2, 2 on the C string, 1, 2 back on the E string, and you just repeat that. So if I play the whole solo, it should sound like this. Okay, so that is me playing. There's obviously a repeat at the end of that section, so I played it round twice, which is what you hear on a record. Okay, so that is the solo. That gives us everything, all the technical aspects of this song. So you've got your intro, which is start up here on the 8, the riff, and then you've got the strumming, which you can have 2 types of strumming. Second type, and then you got the solo. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just going to show you, so if you take the intro part, you can actually hear in the chorus the intro chord section, which is this 8, 10, 11. You can actually hear it in the chorus. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to use my loop machine. I've recorded myself playing the G and C. And this is to demonstrate that in the choruses, if someone was managed to learn the intro section, which is your 8, 10, 11, if you manage to play that section well enough, you'll be able to play that over in the chorus, because you can actually hear it in the actual song. The organ player plays that over in the chorus, and it's a really cool bit. So there's my G and C, G, C, G, and over the top. Okay, so you can hear what that sounds like. So if you've learnt that part, you'll be able to play that over the top in the chorus. Okay guys, so I've just looped over the chords in the backing for the solo, and I'm going to play the solo over the top so you can hear it sounds against the backing chords. Okay, so there you go. So there's the solo part with the backing. And I think all these little riffs are really good exercises. If you have a go at them, they will obviously advance you in terms of your technique if you're not used to this sort of thing. But if you like the song, then certainly being able to play 1 or 2 of these parts in the song will make the track, especially when you're playing with a group of people, stand out and sound more authentic for sure. Hopefully you enjoyed and you'll get something out of it, and have a good go at playing these techniques, and see you in the next one. Take it easy.